We're on now. My name is Kiyahuitl. I have a guest here, Ernesto, Burbank. If you'd like to introduce yourself a little bit more than that, feel free, mano. Uh,
Oh, yate. My name is Ernesto Burbank. This is London Shlont with Chini Bashin. Itashanalikia. My clans, it's the way we introduce ourselves back home. We're always taught to carry these clans and introduce ourselves in conversations and meetings and just overall, making it aware that that your presence is fully here. So yate, thank you for having me on your show.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm known. Obviously, I've known you for know of you for a very couple years now. It's a while back. I don't really want to talk about the incident too much, but I would like to think that this is the first time we've ever really done like a video conversation. It's always been through messages, talking to you,
Yeah.
bro. And well, so it's an honor to be having you here from, just because of the bit of a history that we were kind of aligned to meet up in some aspect.
Oh, yes, definitely. It's like yes, I definitely in agreement with that. It's been a long minute. The journey, it's it's sometimes hard, but then at the times, it's beautiful, and everybody that that I feel like we interact with, you can always keep them in your prayers from afar, and I feel like that's kind of how our connection has been. It's we'll message and we'll talk, and then I feel like we feed ourselves. We feed ourselves with that what the elders call good medicine, and that's through conversation. That's kind of how I feel like our um connection has been since we've started conversating, and I see you doing really good in sharing that knowledge and how you carry it. And so I want to say, that that's one of the biggest reasons why I stay strongly connected to you. Is it's good to have that, that shared energy.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's always been positive vibes. Whenever I speak to you, it's never in ill intentions. It's just like neutral and then just and positive, bro. Like, you know what I mean? I wish you success. And I think you're doing honoring life, right? Honor life.
Life right now, yeah. Right now we're actually out in LA, on and off working on a documentary. It's going on 2 years now. Big shout out to Steve Panada and the Fix Six Studio crew. Him and his family, everybody there. Everybody um, that's contributing to this film, and it's called Tzotazin, which is prayers, and we've been kind of, I guess, really careful with it because we want to make sure that we have permission, certain things that we want to bring to light. And I think a lot of it you cover as well in your social media, and we're trying to put it all together on a film from my family's perspective of what our creation story is and how that's tied to modern times,
Hmm.
and how the things that we were taught growing up are at play, and we're in that world right now. And it has different points, but that's like the main thing that we wanted to get across is that we have to acknowledge our prayers and start understanding it and the way it moves around, from the best way we can gather information of the things that's been passed on to us.
Yeah. So so you guys been working on this documentary for 2 years now, huh? That's Like, you guys must have been putting a lot of effort and into paying attention to detail. That's what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah, it's real. The reason why it has to be carefully put together, just again, it comes down to just having the respect for ceremony, and not only like the creation stories or or things that I guess to put it into a visualization, right? That's when I feel like that's where we have a lot of blockages. A lot of times we
Yeah, hold
can't
on, brother. I'm having
visual.
some video
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know what happened.
You're good. You want me to keep going?
Yeah,
Want
keep
me-
going, mano.
uh, yeah. So I feel like the visual. I can't talk now, but to visualize it, right? Like I guess that's when our my grandma anyway. When I say my what a lot of the teachings that are on this film comes from my grandmother and my mother, and the reason why we're approaching it from that perspective is because that's you know um a woman, we have to, for me, the net person Navajo, we come from a matriarch society, so we always put them first. And I think throughout these years and generational trauma, we tend to forget that as men, and we forget to value the very existence that we come from, and there's teachings that come from that. And so I feel like we do our best to create these visual films so that way they're um basically like footnotes and things that you could revisit when you're in need of it. And a lot of the teachings and the things that we're preparing to share, we have to be really careful with, because there's people that don't understand how the process of a lot of these things are, and there's a lot of
Mhm.
debate, there's a lot of gate things that take that take your energy, and how to prepare these things for public viewing, and so
Yeah,
I guess that's why it's been taking long, is we want to make sure that the most important part is that we respect the ceremonial circles and the teachings, and we can you know um put it across in the right ways. And so that's a huge part of it. And sometimes we forget, when we are making these films, that we forget to acknowledge where they come from, and these
yeah,
stories, they're important, and they're important to carry, so yeah, it's been a long little mission we've been working on, but it's I'm looking forward to getting the final touches and getting it out to the public this
yeah.
coming 2020. And so
What are we
that's
gonna be
one thing.
expecting from this documentary?
What am I expecting?
No, as the public viewer.
Um, shoot, it's just more of I guess a story of me, right? And
Yeah,
I want people to know, like, it's just not me, right? Like it's hard to explain, because like it's the things that were taught to me that make me who I am. And then um everything that I've gone through, and the things that give me life, like all of these things, they come from somewhere. There's a source. And I feel like when we and I guess it's like one of those things where you didn't take life the way it is, the way it was dealt for you, and we didn't have excuses. And when we reflect back on these prayers and teachings, and even the creation stories, my whole goal and my whole hope is to inspire other people, especially from, we come from a poverty nation, right? Like for me, I
Yeah.
come from Chinle area. There's not too much, there's not too much. And a lot of times we rely on sports. A lot of times we rely on these things that, that is a lottery pick, basically,
Yeah.
and I feel like if we can back into understanding our natural power, our natural ability to move around with this world that moves so fast, and have an understanding from a child, which is me, which is a person that was taken out of the reservation at third grade, and I had to learn to be Navajo, Diné in the city, and then from the city, I had to understand what I was going back to when I went back to the reservations for sheep camp during the summers with my grandparents. That's how I guess at the time I hated it, right? But now to look back and reflect on it, there was so much information that my grandmother taught me, and just speaking fluent and being able to participate in these ceremonies to this day, to have this spot in a ceremonial circle, I have her to thank. And I feel like a
Mhm.
lot of times there's nobody to bridge that gap. If you know what I'm saying, there's nobody to really make sense of how these two worlds can coexist.
Yeah.
We were taught that this modern world was coming, and it might not have came in the form of destruction, but for my grandma and our stories and our prophecy, COVID was the sign to go into another world. And that's when um, we go into this kind of an error of losing ourselves and feeding technology so much of ourselves that begins to think for us. A yoetati kiss is what she would call it, because she didn't really speak English, and
Yeah.
she talks about this time and age that comes where it's going to be, we're going to give devices our all of our information, and that's the phone, the very thing. And she said when this time
Yeah.
comes, we're going to have vision is a thought scene is like we're either going to become aware of ourselves, right? Or your kiss is like we're gonna think ourselves out of existence, and that's when you become kind of like a robotic energy, that because no matter what you are as a human, you conduct energy, and we understood that from the
Mhm.
beginning of time. Our ancestors, and that's the reason why we move on a celestial system instead of a numeral system. Everything comes off of a numeral system, yes, but we have to take like we have to go back to the beginning of time when we began to understand this. And the only way we can understand this is by studying the sun, the moon, how the celestial system works. And that gave us all the information that we needed to survive and to create this beautiful home. And somewhere along the line, not somewhere, but we all know like when it happened, colonization happened, and
Yeah.
computers are we're in that day and age where we're either going to think ourselves out of existence, or we're going to become who we naturally are. And that's when kind of like this world kind of wakes up, and we've been experiencing that. For me, I've been experiencing that since
Yeah. No,
Standing Rock is like
I
around.
see what you're saying because I also
Yes.
noticed that with technology, how we are so attached to it. And yes, it's useful, but we also kind of become something that we're technically not. We kind of tend to forget
Yeah.
a little bit of ourselves, because of these things. For
Yeah.
example, like I remember back then, I was in at least the generation before technology really like became a thing that I love to walk, run, go actually visit my friend's house and be like, "Yo, is he there?" Da da da. And if he's not, then I will like walk my ass back home. And now with technology, it has ruined that about me that I'm not able. Like now, I think about it, I was like, "Damn, I don't want to walk 10 blocks to go." Like see if my friend's there or
Yeah.
whatever. And it kind of like took that away from me because technology, it's more easier to call than to have the body moving, you know, with Mother Earth.
Oh yes. So this is crazy how you bring this up, right? She was talking about this. She was like, we're gonna have these devices basically, and it's all in matter of fact, it's all like in these rug patterns, right? She talks about it like, well, we'll talk about that on a different day, but she talks about like how we're going to conduct more energy, and then there's going to be a generation where we're going to be tall, but we're going to be weak, right? There's a generation that's going to be strong. They're going to be like strong trees, but they're going to be easy to fall. And it's also that we're going to be living in such a microwavable world. Everything's going to be in short spans, which are trends, right? Like you
Mhm.
said, like we can't go anywhere without having validation. And it's not like everybody in general, because we do all have to, I guess this is where positivity and our teachings come in, to have kindness for strangers, and you have to have, that welcoming heart of understanding what people are going through, because some people are going to be awake, and that's the reason why you can see certain people changing, and you kind of see them. I guess there's a lot of people that's just in these they're like entrapped in clout, basically clout chasers, right? Like I mean, I'm
Mhm.
not trying to knock nobody, but at the end of the day, you have to fuel off of the things, and you have to water the things that you plant. So when you do that, we're in that age where we're planting so much, but we're not attending the fields that we're planting. And I guess that's where my grandma comes in, and she's telling us about this point in time where we have to understand not everybody's going to be doing everything exactly the same, but you have to pick and choose yourself as an individual and begin to teach, because this is like our opportunity, right? Like this is the reason why I'm going more into. I've traded away from a lot of the storytellings and the paintings, because we're going into how to preserve these teachings and this knowledge for our children, and prep it with the best information possible without being so negative, because there's so many people that are concerned about what's right and wrong that they forget, because everybody's policing each other, right? And so they forget that a lot of times these stories that are passed down carry these beautiful knowledge, and they carry these beautiful like little answers, and they're like treasure maps to yourself. And
Yeah.
by policing each other, I began to cause this like jam to get to where we need to get to. And there's all these accidents we got to attend to before we get there, where we could be empowering one another, teaching one another. And instead, we're so busy, just like we're keeping ourselves from obtaining the information that will, potentially like not only feed us, but it'll empower and feed our children, which is the most important part of everything that we're
Yeah.
working as humans in this distance right now. Like you see cultures losing their language, and that might not be a big thing to a lot of people, right? But like even this documentary talks about how the language itself is connected to agreements, and the reasons why we have certain languages is because, again, we have certain agreements with creation, and that's the reason why we're giving ceremonial songs. They're created to kind of like align themselves with these layers that we live in, and that's the reason why these ceremonial songs are created. And that's what she, even like our ancestors talk about, is we're going to forget about the messages and the meanings in these songs, because we're going to be too busy trying to make it look pretty for our
Yeah.
own existence, for our own wants, for our own lust. And that's when we take something so pure and we begin to kind of manipulate it and weave it into our own wants instead of putting what we're originally here for, because originally we're only the stewards of our earth. And by how we pass on this beauty that we carry and obtain and that we work and sacrifice so hard for is for the next generation behind us, and we forgot
Mhm.
about that. I forgot
Yeah.
about that, you know. i'm not
Yeah,
i'm not
I was gonna
telling
say that.
anybody part of the problem, and I'm trying my best to help conduct from a more positive perspective, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
No, I get it. I definitely get it. I think a lot of the times, majority of the people are unaware of what are we contributing to one another. I'm not saying that I'm never participated on the negativity, but I definitely have. But you're right, bro. Like I see where you're coming from, and I see what you mean. It's hard to express, but I get what you're saying because we
It
do have the
is.
tendency to forget about our people when we are in social media trying to discuss whatever that we just forget about. We're just at that moment we're selfish. We're just not really necessarily helping others or of whatnot, you know. And I you saying these words, I have noticed that about me as well. You know, so I'm saying that I've kind of participated on the negativity of, unfortunately, of social media, but and colonialism has a big part of the corruption that I have amongst my viewing of the world, you know?
Yeah, I completely like understand where you're coming from, and you seen like when we first met, right? Like I had a huge following. I had to walk away from that. That was one of the hardest things for me to do, was completely zero it out and then start fresh. But all of that pressure kind of like lifted off of me enough to think clearly to begin my next part of my journey. But that was meant for me at that given time. That's the reason why I was able to, okay, now we can begin to, and I feel like each sacrifice has a meaning, right? Like everything falls into place the way it needs to. And some people call it God, some people call it different things. For me, I completely give it to creation, the internet, what I'm taught, what I am, you know, and I
Yeah.
stand on it. And I don't ever nobody on standing on anything they believe in, but also I'm also going to stand strongly on what I believe in, and take it all, you know, with gratitude. And I guess that's what I bring this up because my grandma Shamasane, you know, Isabel, that's her name, and
Mhm.
Shamas is my mom, you know, taught us, you know. And I forgot a lot about this because I was too busy being in the world that I was living off of not only my ego, but I was living off of a lot of compliments. I like that, like, I don't know. I have to admit it because that's the only way you can have self-awareness, acknowledgement, and from there you freaking forgive yourself and build something beautiful with the knowledge you've obtained. It doesn't matter like what you've gone through, and it's like that's what my mother, you know, she was like, you know, you have to forgive yourself. And she said, what that means, son, is you have to acknowledge who you are every day. Now you might not be able to do it every day, but she was like, you have to try your best to get up every day and greet, you know, the holy people before the sun rises, and have gratitude, right? And this is something the net people have in that's pretty much they're born with it. Their grandparents, their grandparents, and their grandparents, our ancestors have always told us to get up before the sun comes up with gratitude, no matter the good, the bad, the ugly, whatever it is, leave it and let the sun pick it up. And as simple as that sounds, we have such a hard time letting go of a lot of things. But once we do, it's like it kind of this gratitude, hojon, Hojon Nahastlin is what we say at the end of our prayers. And Hojon, like it has this way of like setting the tempo for your day, so that way you're aware and you're almost in this consciousness and awareness of not only who you are but the people you interact with throughout the day. And it took me, see, I'm 42 going on 43, and it took me this long to really understand and apply it. I have always
Yeah.
understood it, I've always tried it, but I think where I was falling short was I had no belief in it. So when you have this combination, then that's what my grandmother's talking about, is then you become a holy child, and you understand it, and now you can have a conversation with a higher source of who you are, which is a manifestation. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And Hozad is like, you have to be conscious of the way your thought process is to letting those words come out of your mouth. Bahas
Yeah.
is like, you have to be really, because
I want to
you have to
say,
remember how
I want to say, I related to when you said that you're not gonna be able to forgive yourself every day. To be
Mhm.
honest with you, bro, that's one of the things that I've never genuinely done for myself. I never, I guess, given myself that experience, so to say. Um, in all honesty, for me, I'm unable. As smart as I am, or an intellect to others, sometimes moment like this, I feel like a idiot. Like, an aspect that I don't know how to forgive myself. I feel I feel that it's simple, but I just can't seem to grasp, or I just don't seem to understand how to do it. And
Yeah,
I've been living my life, I guess, in the essence, ignoring it, just ignoring it. But that's not obviously a healthy option. But yeah, that's how, unfortunately, I am with that, that I'm unable to really forgive myself of my wrongdoings. And even though I'm not that same individual, and I have changed a whole lot, and I want to say for the better, but there are still things that I have to work among on myself. And that's one of the things that, like I said, is I have a real difficult time to forgive myself and to love myself.
I think that we all struggle with that, right? And we're just like, a lot of times we don't talk about these things, right? Like in our societies, we had a men's society, right? That we spoke of these things, right? We no longer carry ourselves accountable as men. And I don't, and the reason why I say as men is because I can't speak for women, right? Like that's one thing my grandma taught me, is like, you can always address stuff from your perspective and where you stand and where you were born at, but you don't have no right to speak on like what you're not, is basically what she's saying.
Yeah.
That's right. I have to, that's another part of it why I have to be so careful. But with what you talk about with forgiving ourselves, right? She talks a lot about this, right? Because me and my father haven't had the greatest relationship, and she said there's a lot of things that you were born with that doesn't necessarily belong to you. It's in your blood. It's from given from one vessel to another, right? She was like, at that time, you have to understand your blood memory is everything that you need to understand who you are, because your blood comes from first agreement. But your emotions and all these other things that are you're born with come from your parents, and anxiety, all these things that we don't know about, all these things that maybe your father or your mother didn't know how to forgive themselves. You carry these traits, right? And
Hmm.
this is I guess this is the reason why she tells us we're gonna have to become aware of ourselves, and become and acknowledge yourselves. And at that point, you have to forgive yourself, meaning you take not only accountability, but you take inventory of everything that you are. And now, what are you going to do with this? What, right? A lot of times people come to enlightenment, right? You see it all the time. Sure, you see it all the time. The people get enlightened for like 1 or 2 weeks. They're going, they're strong. They run out of fuel because they don't understand it. They don't know how to apply it. It only goes so far.
Yeah.
But you begin to visit who you are, you're endless because you're made of endless planets, you know? And then with that, you get to, I guess this is where she's saying you become an empowered being, meaning you can carry this knowledge that you've gone through and obtain all this knowledge for other people so you can help other people, which I see you doing, or for your children. That's where I'm at. How can I leave something beautiful and pure for my children instead of inheriting all this trauma, all this stress that I'd inherited, alcoholism from my father, you
Mhm.
know? And I'm not trying to badmouth them. That's just what it is. And we have to understand when
Yeah.
we're taking inventory, have to be brutally honest with ourselves. That doesn't mean you're going to talk down on yourself. That means you're going to take inventory of yourself, and then you're going to assess everything. When you become balanced with that, the good, the bad, and the ugly, that's when you begin to become empowered, because then you're going to be picking up all of these beautiful things on how to deal with different things. It's like working out. Now you're going to be emotionally strong. Now you're going to be stronger to the alcohol that secretly talks to you at night at 2 in the morning, through commercials, through an event at the family. Now you're going to understand that Asian art end up at Boichi, like kind of you learned it because you had a relationship with it. But now
Yeah.
you have every right, since you've been in that world and you came out of it with scars.
Yeah.
You
I can
have that
relate to
right
that.
to
I
carry.
I could definitely relate to that, from my own experience of, well, my father, he's never been he's physically around, but
Yeah.
he's never been emotionally or mentally around. He so it's a bit of, it's like I'm fatherless, but even though I have him physically there, and growing up, I had this fear of him, of my father. Now I I think over the years I've had fear for my father. I didn't love him as much, but now as I've gotten older, I've learned to understand him, and by me understanding him, where he came from or how he grew up, uh, it allows me to love him.
Oh yes. We have to love. We have to, whether it's good or bad, ugly, it doesn't matter. We have to give it love. That's the only way things can repair, and that's the hardest thing. And maybe that's why we have to forgive in order to get there, right? Like it's definitely for us men in this generation, we're dealing with what our fathers kind of gave us, if that makes sense. Now we have
Yeah.
to deal with those things to repair it for the next generation.
Mhm.
And it's hard to forgive yourself. You're actually doing a lot of the things that I feel like, your purpose is, you're fulfilling it. But with that, you're gonna visit a lot of uncomfortableness because you have to adjust all of these things that you're dealing with even right now.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that's one I have to I deal with some similar things as well.
Yeah, bro. Well, I know you earlier you told me if we could just do 30 minutes. We are at nearly 35 minutes. Just trying to give you a heads up. How do you feel? Do you want to continue a little bit more? I'm enjoying
Uh,
the conversation. I'm pretty sure the viewers as well. Um,
yeah, like we can, yeah, we could do like 5 more minutes. It's definitely interesting. I want to keep going. Unfortunately, I have my daily prayers. I have my daily things I gotta attend to, so I gotta
Yeah,
do
no,
that.
no,
And
we'll cut it now, brother. We'll cut it now. We'll do this again soon when you have a little bit more of liberty of time. Um,
yes,
yeah, you know, I would like for everybody to. I want to say thank you to everybody that has attended. You know, watching our brother Ernesto, Che Burbank,
oh,
and we'll see
oh,
you soon again.
you guys again, and we'll